Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our Tuning Up Your Economic Engine business coaching webinar. We'll explore how CEOs and executive leadership teams can learn some proven insights in optimizing cash flow to scale your business for improved success. So how can a company that's generating solid revenues go to business due to cash flow? Well, it happens quite often. What can you do to tune up your economic engine and avoid a similar problem? That's me, Jerome Dickey, the founder and CEO of Agile Work Solutions. I guide CEOs, executive directors, and executive leadership teams in identifying their barriers, working to build and implement a roadmap through a proven, practical, and profitable approach to growth. In essence, we transform business through people by helping to simplify the complex with a focus on the 7 attributes of agile growth. And clients I typically work with are chief executive officers, executive directors, boards, executive leadership teams, entrepreneurs and founders, small, medium enterprises, and community organizations. So what are the 7 attributes of agile growth? Well, it's a strategic business framework for growth that addresses every aspect of business operations, yet is designed to incorporate outside content, tools, and principles. Think of it as an open operating system rather than a closed one. It never stops evolving. And that's the power of this framework over others. Too often we're seeing CEOs and executive leadership teams lack discipline and a culture of accountability. And as a result, they don't commit to the consistent application of a proven framework for growth. Put simply, they're failing because they failed to commit. Well, the 7 attributes of agile growth is a more disciplined approach, empowered by a proven, comprehensive, yet adaptable framework for growth. Those who select the right framework outperform their competitors, and we know that from research. And as well, their CEOs are more confident and they're productive. As a result, they're able to build award-winning companies and greater personal wealth. A true strategic business framework for growth is agile, it's comprehensive, and it remains consistent through time. Instead of a passing fad, it serves as a foundation within which new content, research, and tools can be integrated. And that's the power of the 7 attributes of agile growth. Here's what the 7 attributes are: leadership, talent, strategy, execution, customer, profit, and systems. For today's webinar, we're just going to focus on the profit attribute. Here's a bit of a metaphor I'd like to share around the 7 attributes growth framework. Think about building a home. After the foundation is laid, the framing of the home sets the basic structure of the home and will include the appropriate rooms to make the house a home: a family room, a kitchen, dining room, bedrooms, bathroom, laundry room, and office, for example. Each room is carefully framed in, and the home would be incomplete without each room. Now, once framed, each family that lives in the home for years and decades to come may change the colors, the decorations, and the furniture, but the basic 7 rooms remain well framed and the core of the home's benefit to the family. And so it is with the 7 attributes. Each is vital to a company's growth from startup to full maturity. And through time, various tools, service providers, and content can be added and modified, but the basic framework remains intact and holds the home, if you want, together. The 7 attributes framework, it's agile, it's scalable, and it's comprehensive. It's agile because it involves continuous evaluation, course correction, and alignment to outpace your competitor's strategy, their execution, and profit. It's scalable. It's a framework. It has tools and advisors that can help scale up right from initial IPO right through to a successful exit. And it's comprehensive. It involves thought leadership, practical tools, and expert advisors, coaches like myself, in the 7 key areas of the attributes. The growth process is easy and speedy. You start by building an annual plan, what we call a growth roadmap, with the leadership team. Then go on to learn and employ the 7 attributes tools continuously, and finally assess progress on a regular basis, when market conditions change, when new opportunities arrive. We've seen a lot of that this past year as COVID hit home with a lot of organizations, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of companies who have struggled through this. Every company has a business plan. The question is whether they have intentionally and proactively planned it out as a team, or are they somewhere between winging it and having it well documented and current. And this is just an example of what the growth roadmap looks like. We'll be covering that off in another webinar, but we're going to show you a bit of what that looks like here. Today, we're going to give you the gift of a powerful tool that'll help you be able to focus on your cash flow. All the tools are simple, one page, and easy to understand. They're practical. They include learning, instructions, and discussion how to apply it to your business. And it's actionable. Through that discussion, it'll help lead you to some conclusions, some solutions that you can apply within your business. Let's start with a brief question here to get the thinking going. Take out a small piece of paper or a notepad or something and jot down a couple notes around this question. How long does it take your company from getting a sales proposal to getting paid for that order? What's that look like, that timeline? I'll give you a moment to think on that and jot down a couple notes on it. Okay, let's move on to second question here I have. What would happen to your business if your largest customer by revenue could not pay you tomorrow? What would happen? Again, think on that for a moment, jot down a note or two. Okay, we're going to get started and move along here. Let's take a look at the profit attribute of the 7 attributes of Agile growth here, which ensures that a growth company has the right cash to scale and for some, value to exit at the right time. Here's a key question to ask. Do we have sufficient cash to fuel growth? We can ask it another way. Using the intellect and experience of our entire team, how can we find cash flow we did not know was there? So we don't have to live month to month or become overly dependent on outside financing sources. Let's begin with an illustrative metaphor I think we're pretty well probably all familiar with. And that's this, an aircraft engine. A jet engine is a powerful analogy for our business and how we can help it grow. As we begin the profit attribute together, have in mind the key elements of your business's economic engine and how it is doing. Are there changes you can make to improve, optimize, or increase its output? How can we tune our core business engine to scale our company's growth? An organization that's agile and can scale successfully has optimized cash flow and understands the forces and levers in their control to increase profit and cash. So there's 5 key activities when they're completed. Ensure you're understanding optimization of that. And the first and the biggest focus for this webinar today is going to be the cash conversion cycle. And there's 4 areas within that to focus on. There's sales, make, production and inventory, delivery, and your billing and payment. But there's 4 other key activities as well. One is optimizing the balance between profit and cash flow. Being clear on your labor, what it's costing and its efficiency. The product mix, which products are profitable, and making decisive choices using this. And 5th, pricing. Where's your place within the market and a strategy to grow with increases? You've heard the slogan, cash is king? Well, now more than ever, this is critical. As Deloitte recently suggested an article entitled COVID-19 Managing Cash Flow in Crisis, smart companies are shifting their focus from the income statement to the balance sheet. So today we're going to do a deeper dive a bit into the cash conversion cycle. Other aspects here just mentioned we'll touch on in future webinars. How many of you have played a game of Monopoly? I imagine most of you have. I have, and it's certainly a great game to understand cash flow. If you run low on cash early in the game, you likely can't invest in additional properties, which later will hurt as you have to pay others more for landing on their properties with houses and hotels on them. It's frustrating. If you're played with family or friends, Monopoly, you want to be the one owning all the hotels, all the houses, and having people land on your properties. Well, Monopoly, when you run low on cash, you'd have to keep paying others. You're in a cash crunch. You may be forced to sell assets at a discount to raise cash, which impairs your ability to generate future revenue from those assets. Well, running a business is just like playing Monopoly. When you run out of cash, it makes it nearly impossible to continue to operate your company. It's game over. Let's talk about the importance of cash and ways to improve your cash position, because cash is like oxygen is to your body. Without it, you cease to exist. How many of you would like to improve your cash position? I imagine most of you would. So how do the most profitable companies break out and rise above the competition in their industries? It's a great question. Let's look at Costco as an example of cash innovation. Costco is a fast growth global big box retailer. Sure, every one of you have heard of them, and many of you are probably members. I am. Well, Costco back in 1976, they become from Price Club, and Costco was founded in 1983. Those two organizations came together, and the idea of charging memberships came from Price Club founders Sol Price, and he got the idea from a company called Fedco, and this company was a single warehouse store that sold products mostly to the U.S. Postal Service, and they charged this membership fee. That's where he got the original idea from. And so, like most ideas, they come from looking around and looking elsewhere, not just at competitors, but outside your current field of business. In any case, they broke away Costco from their primary competitor, Sam's Club, with a game-changing innovation. Co-founder Jim Senegal implemented an annual membership fee for his customers to shop at Costco warehouse stores. And this was considered extremely risky at the time, but is now proven to be a very profitable business model innovation that's come forward. Membership fees now account for over 70% of Costco's profit as the financing mechanism for the opening of new stores. Without that, they would not be opening new stores. Renewal rates, the membership fees, are high. They're around 90% as of 2019. And it's membership fees that make up most of Costco's income. That's how they've managed this strategic growth over the last couple decades. By modifying its business model, Costco created a cash acceleration strategy for growth. So Costco has become a massive global retailer by doing something many people might have once thought was crazy. The idea of charging people a fee just to shop in its stores. Well, it worked. Here's what a typical cash conversion cycle looks like. There's four elements to the cash conversion cycle. One is sales. Second is make, production, and inventory. Third is delivery. And fourth is billing and payment. Those are the four elements you want to look at. What we want to do is start thinking about ways to accelerate cash in all four of these areas. And yes, you all have ways to improve cash by working through a cash conversion cycle for your company or organization. By understanding your cash conversion cycle, you can employ cash acceleration strategies to increase your cash flow. So how many of you have heard of the cash conversion cycle? Probably many of you have. Accountants are obviously very familiar with it. Well, the cash conversion cycle is the amount of time it takes to go from a sales proposal to getting paid for that order. Think of it like a football field. One goal line represents the sales proposal, and the other represents the receiving of the payment. There are 100 yards in between. What we're trying to do is shrink that 100 yards down. In the early 1990s, Dell Computers was running out of cash, even while it was growing. They hired Tom Meredith as their chief financial officer, and one of his missions was to increase liquidity, i.e. cash. When he took over in 1991, their cash conversion cycle was at 63 days. As you can see here, when Tom retired in 2001, he had reduced the cash conversion cycle to minus 29 days. Yes, that's a minus. So in all, he improved it by 84 days. He did this by streamlining his manufacturing, working with suppliers, and by getting his customers to pay for their product up front. Think about the last time you maybe bought a Dell computer, and many others are doing this now, of course, with online ordering. You give them your credit card and they take your money before you ever enter that order into the system. Well, since 2001, Dell has continued to streamline its processes, and in 2006 had a cash conversion cycle of minus 39 days. How many of you know what your cash conversion cycle is today? I bet you it's not minus 39 days. So here's 3 ideas to consider as you look at the components of your cash conversion cycle. All 3 of these can apply to each of the 4 components of the cash conversion cycle. Here's some examples of how mistakes can affect cycle times. A mistake in the sales cycle, such as with writing the order, slows down the cycle. If you have a mistake in production and you have to rebuild an order or reorder something, it costs money and slows down the amount of time it takes to deliver. If you have a mistake in shipping, the shipping instructions were maybe not clear in the sales order, it slows down the delivery. If the invoice is not correct when billed, or if the invoice instructions were not clear from the sales cycle, it slows down payment, etc. Look closely at this diagram. It has 2 sides, growth and profitability, supported by a foundation, which we call liquidity here. Without any one of these key elements, the others collapse. A key point is that it takes profitability to create liquidity, that foundation. Once you build the foundation, liquidity, it allows you to grow. It allows that growth to take place. And so if you look at this a little closer through this diagram, it's the momentum that travels like a clock. Growth with profitability equals increased liquidity, which fuels growth, which if profitable, provides more liquidity. And that momentum continues in a cycle. That's why it's so important not only to grow, but to grow profitably. There are many examples of companies that grew either too fast or had growth in revenue, but not profit, and they ran out of gas. That is cash, liquidity, and they died. Anytime one of the two side elements break down, the momentum stops and the foundation starts to crumble. Growth and profitability equals liquidity. Let's take a moment for you to make a few notes while you think about the ways to optimize your cash without increasing sales or profitability. How do you optimize your cash? How can you eliminate mistakes in your business? If you've got a piece of paper, take it out now while we're going through these questions and jot down a few notes. How can you eliminate mistakes in your business? How can you shorten cycle times? What might improve your business model? Think about those 3 questions for just a moment. Eliminating mistakes, shortening cycle times, improving your business model. Okay, so we're going to move on, but these are great questions you can raise within your executive leadership teams. Sit down and talk about these questions. You'll generate some amazing discussion of it. Probably some good ideas will emerge, and you'll start on your way to improving things. How many of you found ways to optimize your cash without increasing sales and or profitability? Yeah, it's probably pretty eye-opening, isn't it? Well, I love sharing stories, so here's another one. Kagari Designs, based in Shanghai, China, manufactures and sells accessories to the North American market. In the spring of 2013, when working with a certified Gravitas coach, they calculated a cash conversion cycle of approximately 300 days. That's 10 months. In reviewing their situation, they further found that on business deals of $2 million and greater, they were acting as a bank to their larger customers. They were financing it in essence. The leadership team had a debate and quickly moved to a core question. Can we actually change the payments that are the norm in their industry? So it was the norm to finance your largest customers, and they were now questioning this and challenging this. After several discussions, and apparently some were quite spirited, and working on their business strategy, Kangari modified their brand promise and their purpose to be Kangari, the $1 million service. They then began to change their business model to reflect this strategic update. Over the next several months, adversity came upon Kangari, and as their largest customer filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the United States, and they were owed $2 million in outstanding payables. Life throws those curveballs. Well, here's one that came at them. Well, the CEO of Kangari sought counsel from his strategic trusted advisors, and then he went off and flew to New York to meet with the private equity firm that had purchased the assets of their largest client. But of course, their debts weren't purchased. The CEO persuasively made the case that their relationship was strategic and for the long term. And if both parties committed to success, they would weather the bankruptcy together. As a result of this very bold move, Kagari secured a 75 cents on the dollar repayment of their payables outstanding. And they also negotiated vastly improved payment terms for their future relationship. Well, after implementing the changes and continuing to execute this partnership successfully, Kagari's cash conversion cycle decreased on an order of magnitude of 33 days, and the risk greatly decreased. So this is an important lesson for growth companies, never to sell for the fallacy, we could never change the way the industry does business, because they did it. And if they didn't do that, they probably wouldn't have survived at that time. Seek ways to challenge, break, and improve your company's business model. Here's a little different example. When South African entrepreneur Stevie Lomas engaged a certified business coach, she was facing challenges in key areas of her working capital, and thus creating a negative cash flow for her company. Manufacturing requires cash to support the rapid growth of her business, the Camel Soap Factory. And we all know that growth sucks cash, right? Production, inventory, that takes a lot of cash. Steve had taken her soap making hobby from her home kitchen to a licensed manufacturing facility in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. She had doubled her business revenues every year since launching and was exporting all around the world. Sounds like a great success story, right? Although the business had plenty of inbound sales inquiries, its sales manager was finding it challenging to keep on top of the sales process. Probably stretched thin with positions here. It was very manual in nature, and as a result, was not running as efficiently as it could. This probably sounds familiar to maybe some of your businesses. The sales manager was also responsible for deliveries on an ad hoc basis, taking him away from his core role and thus impacting the sales cycle and damaging cash flow. Well, the business had been buying in bulk to take advantage of better prices, leaving it with huge inventories of raw materials. So they were stocking up raw materials, and there's a cost to that. They were making 100% upfront payments to suppliers for up to 60 days in advance of receiving the items. And they were storing 260 days worth of inventory, which was tying up cash. Applying the cash conversion cycle thinking, Stephen, our certified coach, highlighted the parts of our business's cash conversion cycle that would have the largest impact on cash and prioritize them, the action on them in their first quarter of working together. So to improve the sales cycle, Stevie hired a delivery driver, freeing up her sales manager to concentrate on his core task of managing the sales process. They installed a cloud-based CRM system that clearly mapped the sales process and reduced the time needed to manage it, opening time for more sales activities, and that generated accelerated revenues. This also had a positive impact on the delivery cycle, driving cash into the business more efficiently. On the make, production, and inventory cycle aspect of it, they introduced lean methodology. They identified key production activities, timing, and improvements to smooth the business processes. One key measure was simply asking how many times does a soap get handled in the process and removing certain steps. This is a key activity which we'll get into another webinar in future. They reduced their stock holding of finished goods from 260 days to 120 days through better sales forecasting and production planning. That's a huge drop. Steve was also able to negotiate better terms with their key suppliers. And one case was able to have the initial upfront payment to a supplier, which freed up cash. And this was done just by asking for the better terms with their suppliers. Go into relationships, keep good relationships with your suppliers. So this greatly improved the billing and payment cycle. Well, the Camel Soap Factory was able to get into a cash positive territory within 6 months of engaging these cash acceleration strategies and remove their need for further external loans. Great story, working with a great coach. Now it's your turn. Let's walk through the cash conversion cycle exercise. This is what the form is, and this is the tool we've provided to you already. If you don't have it already, we will send it to you after this webinar. Let's think about the 4 components of the cash conversion cycle: sales, make, production, and inventory, delivery, and billing and payment with regards to the Camel Soap Factory example. So in this example, we can see that the idea is to improve your marketing sales cycle. They hired a delivery driver. They installed a cloud-based CRM system, which mapped the process and reduced time needed to manage it. The idea is to improve your make, production, and inventory cycle. Well, they came up with 3 topics here. They introduced lean methodology. And lean, for those who aren't familiar with it, maybe it's a business methodology that promotes the flow of value to a customer through 2 guiding tenets: continuous improvement and respect for people. It's a philosophy and a discipline which at its core increases access to information to ensure responsible decision-making in the service of creating customer value. The second thing was identifying key production activities, timing, and improvements. And the third was reduced stock holding of finished goods from 260 days down to 120. The idea is to improve your delivery cycle. There's nothing listed here, but again, hiring that delivery driver also helped on that. And finally, ideas to improve your billing and payment cycle. Well, they negotiate with suppliers for better terms. And just by asking, we're able to get some of that. This is one example of using the form and how you could use it. Again, great activity to sit down with your team and go through and come up with some of these ideas. Here it is on the top. There's some reminders of what this looks like, the 4 key areas. And then down below, it's simply sit down and go through each one as a team and talk about it. Focus on each segment for a period of time and do some brainstorming, some activities to really open up the thinking around that. Think about the 4 components of this. What are some ways you can improve each? Take a moment just briefly to think about that in the big picture here. You've got a piece of paper, jot down a couple of notes once again. just briefly, what comes to top of mind for you on these 4 areas? So here's the 5 key supporting activities in summary. As we've talked about here, the cash conversion cycle was really the focus of this webinar today. And for future webinars, we will explore others. Other aspects of this are the internal cash flow, efficient labor management, recurring revenue of the products and services you have, and a well thought out pricing strategy have to fit in this as well. So in summary, tuning up your economic engine. Do you have cash to fuel your growth? Look to optimize your cash flow and understand the forces and levers in their control to increase profit and cash. Maximize the 4 areas of the cash conversion cycle. And finally, growth and profitability equals liquidity. So what are the action steps you can leave with today? Well, I'll leave 3 with you here. 3 steps to tuning up your economic engine. Clearly understand the forces and levers in your control to increase your profit and cash. Look to the cash conversion cycle, the internal cash flow and profit, your cost and efficiency of labor, profitability of your products and services, and your pricing strategy. I suggest doing a deep dive in your cash conversion cycle to start. It's often the easiest place to start, and what's often can bring you quick benefits highlighted to you. Aspects like days inventory outstanding, days sales outstanding, days payable outstanding. Those are a few metrics, measures you can look at. Use tools like the cash conversion cycle tool we've gifted to you today to have a comprehensive discussion with your team. It'll get you started. Group and prioritize your ideas, again, with your team, and then put them into action. And that's where you can get everyone in your organization involved by sharing some of this out and getting them engaged in that. The third step here I've got is learn from others. So we tend to look around often at our competitors and what they're doing, but look beyond that. Companies like Costco for their model look beyond. Dell has looked beyond as well. So look beyond your own industry to other industries, what's going on, what maybe could be leveraged within your organization. Get familiar with lean methodology. The basics are fairly simple and can be applied quite readily. And finally, crowdsource from employers, suppliers, and customers what their thoughts are. They're often closest to your operations and can offer valuable ideas that you can implement and use. By tuning up your economic engine, your leadership team and organization is better prepared to make choices and execute in alignment with your purpose and goals. Profit, along with the other attributes to agile growth, will put you on the journey to improve your business success. Get your whole organization involved, make it fun, inspirational, and energetic. That's it. Thanks for joining us today. If you need help with this or other tools that I'll be sharing with you in upcoming webinars, give me a call, send me an email, and let's connect. This is just the beginning of the conversation, and I'd love to hear back from you on how it's working for you. Again, I'm here to share resources with you in any way I can help you out. Take care, be safe, and stay agile. Bye for now.